Question: does a detective need an accomplice? Why do so many have an often useless sidekick?
Most of the process of working out a case goes on in a detective's mind, which is fine when you're writing it as a novel, but when you're doing it televisually, you need someone to serve as a sounding board so that lead detective can verbalise his thought process and reveal to his sidekick, and by extension the entire audience, just how intelligent and brilliant he's being.
I think it's basic detective work where the main detective is so clever that the sidekicks, what is it, sir? So, you know, so that he can look to be the intelligent one. And that stems right back from Conan Doyle as well.
What do you say, Holmes?
What can I say? Major Murphy, you have told me nothing!
Watson, I think an admirable man, and one that you often encounter in Shakespeare plays. He's the sort of stalwart friend.
I begin to see dimly what you're driving at.
Watson, in the Doyle stories, is there to transcribe Sherlock Holmes's cases and actually present them to us. He's not a character who does very much as such. You know, he will go to places with Sherlock Holmes and follow him around, but he's not making any logical leaps himself. You know, he's there to observe things on Sherlock Holmes' behalf every now and again, but he's not there to actually help Sherlock. He's not his assistant. He's there to actually, and I think Holmes has him along, to actually write down the myth of Sherlock Holmes. He's there to be his blog, basically.
Watson, if the key was not in the door, and neither Mrs. Barclay nor the Colonel had it, then
there must have been a third person.
His observation of Holmes' mannerisms, sometimes his intolerance of them, and of the peculiarities and foibles of the people who come as clients to 221 Baker Street, that all needs acute observation. So that again is against the idea of him being just a silly old fool.
Elementary, my dear Holmes.
Modern sidekicks should be hard-working. Frost goes through partners like a Taggart script goes through stabbings.
Did you study electronics at university?
No, sir. Geography, actually.
Really? Well, that's very handy, because you'll be able to find your way to the canteen and get me a bacon and egg sandwich. Chop, chop.
The more unlikely the partnership, the better. Hard-living Taggart's right-hand man was Jardine, a born-again Christian.
By the way, what is that?
Mineral water.
And nuts. What are you planning to do, hibernate?
I don't drink.
But the classic modern sidekick is Inspector Morse's long-suffering sergeant.
Oh, Lewis.
There are two crucial roles for any sidekick, and one is to re-emphasise and underline the key character traits of the lead detective. So Morse and Lewis are a great example of that, whereas Morse is quite posh, quite snobby, always a bachelor. Lewis is working class, hard-working, family man, and you get that constant clash where Morse is constantly belittling and patronising and taking the mickey out of Lewis.
Oh, I like that. It was good. Who was it?
That, Lewis, was Maria Callas.
Was it from Cats?
No, it most certainly was not.
The wife wants to go to Cats. Don't know why. She's allergic to them.
And Lewis kind of takes it on the chin because ultimately he's loyal to his boss and he respects him. But we're constantly reminded of things that are kind of flaws to Morse, really. His snobbery hinders him because it makes him despair of the world and it sucks out a lot of his ambition. Whereas Lewis is a lot more happy-go-lucky and is able to just, you know, roll through life. And you always suspect that ultimately Lewis will end up being the more successful policeman, career-wise, in the long term.
Indeed, when Morse died, Lewis got a pay rise and got a cool sidekick of his own. The Morse team were following in the footsteps of the Taggart producers, who had successfully promoted their sidekick following the loss of their real-life star.
I was brought into the sidekick role a good 8 years before Mark died. And at the end, it was quite a difficult job. It was certainly harder than it was at the start. But it was brilliant training for me. I mean, it was really thinking on your feet. And when Mark died, I thought that would be it. And the network said, no, we'll have one.
We all wanted the series to go on, and it was a little bit risky to continue calling it Taggart, and a few people, well, more than a few people said, how can you go on calling it Taggart? And then after about 3, 4, 5, 6 shows, people stopped asking that, and the name Taggart kind of became a trademark.
That was 14 years ago. Since then, Jardine has also been retired.
Whoa.
And the Taggart brand plays it safe by having a team of detectives and sidekicks.
The way it works in Taggart is that they try to focus a story on one of the characters. So the rest of us become sidekicks for that character.
What now?
Get a warrant, Jackie. Take his house, office, car apart. Clothes, debris, dandruff, the lot. He's at it. I can feel it in my water. You check his alibi, Verona Campbell.
Maybe I should go, sir. She can be a wee bit sensitive.
Oh, dear. I'd better no upset her, eh? You go to Kovac's house, he interviews Campbell.